Comedy legend Louis Black is bringing Goodbye Yeller Brick Road, the final tour, to Steelhouse on Sunday, February 25th. Tickets go on sale Friday, November 17th at 10 a.m. Get yours at steelhouseomaha.com.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. You have found your way over to Jester Section Hiker, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers, and I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. The spotlight this week goes to a familiar voice for those of you that listen to the Trail Dames podcast, which is also part of the Hiking Radio Network. I reached out to Anna Huthmaker, or as she likes to say, all her friends call her Mudbutt, to actually see if she was interested in talking about some common hiking topics such as injuries, not completing a goal, and post-trail depression. As you will hear, we did end up talking about those topics, but the conversation quickly turned into evolving as a hiker and hearing Anna's amazing journey from hiking 700 miles on the Appalachian Trail in 2003 to starting her amazing organization, the Trail Dames. I knew when I contacted Anna we were going to have a great chat, but what I didn't know is how, at the end of our conversation, Anna, in her amazing way, would put a nice little bow on it with taking us back to our high school lunchrooms. Thanks for finding your way here to the podcast this week, and now on to my friend, Anna Huthmaker. All right, so you guys, welcome to the podcast. You have heard her voice before, and she is part of the Hiking Radio Network. Anna, welcome back.
Thank you. But I'm Anna Huthmaker, and all my friends call me Bud, but I have to say that like on every single thing.
I know it's like programmed. Our taglines are like programmed,
exactly,
right? Yes.
So
I'll just go ahead and let the listeners know. A couple weeks ago, I sent Anna a text and I said, hey, Anna, do you want to come on the show and talk about, I'm going to name them out. And it sounds terrible when I read this: injuries, disappointment, not completing a goal, and post-trail depression. So I'm like, well, Anna would be perfect to talk about those four topics.
I'm not sure quite how to take that, but okay.
So I don't know about you, Anna, but as a podcaster, and I'm sure you're the same way, and I'm sure all of the hikers listening to this can relate. When you're out on a hike, you're probably just thinking about all kinds of topics you could talk about, various maybe people you might want to reach out to have on the show. And literally, I was at my local nature preserve, and I was like, you know what? I've had some emails about people injuring me or sending me an email saying, hey, would you mind, speaking about these various topics? But I'm going to change all that. You good with that?
I am totally good with that. I just will say, as a little aside, all of those things you listed, I and every hiker I know have been through them. And so, of course, at any point we could talk about all that, but it's just such a small part of the experience. So, and the bottom line is, how do you come through it all? So we all came through it all, and we're still hiking. So
that's right. So eventually we may or may not on this episode talk about injuries, disappointment, not completing a hiking goal, or post-trail depression, because I know Anna's been through those four and I have myself. But I had a conversation last week, and you guys, if you heard the episode with Corey Strathmeyer and Anna, her trail name is Pajama Mama.
And excuse me, Corey and I have been trying to schedule a podcast for like a year now. I'm so glad you had her on. I'm dying to talk to her at some point.
Well, she'll come on anytime. So eventually, hopefully you guys will connect. But we got on a topic, and I don't even know how we got on this topic because her episode was about section hiking the Mason-Dixon Trail. But we actually ended up talking about our growth as hikers. And what I mean by that is when we first started out hiking, it was like hike. And I just want to like plan my next hike. And I just want to, you don't really think about, maybe getting involved in the trail organization or getting involved in your local community and how you can give back to the trail. And we got into this big conversation where we are now growing as hikers. And, I find myself wanting to become more and more involved in the Mountains of Sea Trail community and actually, dive into that deeper. And then she started talking about, maybe getting on the board at one of her local community on her one of her local community trails, and we kind of went off on a tangent about that. And then I put a call to action. Who out there has been like in hike mode, but now you're like on the board of your home state trail or you're leading trail maintenance somewhere? And make this long story short, Anna, you're the perfect guest for this because you started off as you wanted to thru hike the Appalachian Trail. I don't know if everybody knows your story, but you are now the lead dame of what I would call one of the most phenomenal organizations across the United States, the Trail Dames. And I want to talk to you about your story when you made that transition of hike. Yes, I want to give back. You creating this phenomenal organization. And I don't know if it's out there. I don't know if you've ever told the whole story on your podcast.
Well,
so,
and I've told the story many times. I have to tell you, when you just called Trail Dames a phenomenal organization, you kind of choked me up a little bit because everything that we do in this journey as growing as hikers that you're talking about, it gets larger and we create more dreams and goals and everything. And where I am now with the Trail Dames, on day one, we didn't know where it would end up, but the fact that it is here now and other people recognize it as being important, like it is to me, that just moves me. It totally moves me. But okay, I got off on a tangent. I'm sorry, but
that's okay. So let's go back. So, you have the Trail Dames organization. It is a 501c3 proper organization.
Yes.
And, you're a podcast host, but let's go back to Anna starting the Appalachian Trail through hiker Anna, who, technically you're a section hiker. You completed through McAfee Knob. And within that, you had injuries, disappointment, not completing a goal, probably some post-trail depression. But out of that started this organization. So let's go back. So tell us a little bit about Anna Hiker, and maybe we'll start having a conversation as your growth and how you got into this and where you are now. So that's what the podcast is going to be about now, Anna. Are you good?
I'm good. I have so many things to say. I don't even know where to start. Okay, so I want to say this, though. For me, it did not start as Anna the thru hiker. And I think for most people, and, we can use the terms thru hiker, section hiker, hike lover, all those are interchangeable for a conversation like this. None of us were dropped out of the sky in the middle of that process. I started as Anna, the musician at Brevard Music Center one summer, and a cute bass player said, "Do you want to go on a hike?" And I was like, "Never been on a hike." Yes, I do. And, and it just like the entire story is so amazing when you look back, because while you're in the process, you don't know what's happening. But I went from literally getting my trail name on my very first hike ever to starting to learn to hike and wanting to hike and being ashamed because I was so slow. So no one wanted to hike with me. No one ever said that, but that was my story in my heart. And so I hiked by myself and came to love that and just learned and grew and grew. And I have to tell you, it's very interesting because The process to Anna, the thru hiker, actually started with sitting in a doctor's office and finding a little postcard about the Avon 3-Day. And I don't know if you or any of your listeners remember, but there was years there where Avon...
I do. It was the breast cancer walk.
It was the breast cancer walk, exactly. And it was 60 miles in 3 days. And I remember picking it up for some unknown reason. I was not certainly wasn't a big exerciser or a big walker or anything, and taking home my mother and saying, do you think I could do this? And I did that. That spurred my dream to hike the AT, which spurred all the sudden trail names, and everything just leads one to the other. And before you know it, here you are.
But this has been years. So what year did you set out to hike the Appalachian Trail?
So I set out to hike the AT in 2003, which is really cool that we're doing this year because it was the last year of the giant cicada invasion. Our year
and now the cicadas are back.
They're back. It was an El Nino year. And it's so interesting because now we're talking 18 years ago, which is shocking because I don't even feel, like I've gotten any older, and I really do feel like it happened yesterday. But you know how that is when you try to do something like hike on the Appalachian Trail, and it doesn't matter if you're through hiking or section hiking, it just gives birth to all kind of things. So my last 18 years was full of that.
You're out through hiking, you want to through hike the Appalachian Trail. You start this dream in 2003, and some things happened along the way. And for those that listen to the Trail Names podcast, which is part of the Hiking Radio Network, I'm sure they know your story, but you dealt with a ankle injury or, a foot injury, right?
I did. So, I did the first 100 miles, and going into Franklin, North Carolina, I broke my foot. And, you guys know what it's like, regardless of what your life's goal or dream, if you're working on something big, especially something that's taken several years of planning, I wasn't going to go too easy into that good night, so to speak. And so I went home, and it took me several doctors to find one that said I could go back out. And I had a doctor, and he said, he was like the third doctor. And he said, sure. He says, you need to take 7 weeks, sit in a wheelchair. He put me in a cast, the whole business. And
Man.
yeah. And so, and I did. And my parents were amazing because I had to move in with them because I had sublet my house, and my mom force fed me spinach.
You did the whole thing. You were like, I'm going to through hike. I'm, put my stuff in storage. I'm not going to worry about anything for the next 6 months. I'm going to have the time of my life. And then within 100 miles, here comes the injury.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so interesting because, I had arranged my bills to be paid and everything. And, but I will tell you, in the beginning, my head was just not really in it. The whole thing was exciting and amazing, but so scary and so terrifying. And I still didn't really feel like I belonged. So when I broke my foot, I did go through a little period of time where I kind of almost blamed myself. I kind of was saying, well, Anna, was that psychosomatic? Did you Freudian, do it yourself without even knowing? I had all these feelings like I had failed myself, but maybe on purpose and not knowing it. And I'm sure a therapist could have a field day with all those things. But
I was getting ready to ask you why did you feel like you don't belong?
Well, the first reason I felt like I didn't belong was always because I was overweight. Because nowadays, you got all kind of people out there. You got Summer in her program. You got the Unlikely Hiker. You got all these people. But I'm telling you, in 2000, there were not overweight women on the trail. They were so few and far between. I did not know any. And so when I would go out hiking, I was very aware that I did not look like an ad out of Backpacker magazine, and that I was certainly slower than everyone else. It took a lot more effort to get up the mountains. Now, in all honesty, was anyone else noticing those things? I don't know. I doubt it. But, we're all living in our own head. But but I was carrying a lot of insecurity about all that. And so now the beauty is when you get on the Appalachian Trail, the people around you don't treat you like that. You're just another person trying to through hike. So I always felt completely accepted. But there was just this little thing in the back of my head. I didn't grow up exercising or athletic. I was a cellist, I mean, so, but the beauty, the AT kind of beat a lot of those insecurities out of me. And what it did put into me, and which so many of your listeners will understand, is it put in me this deep, abiding love for the process of going on a hike. That feeling. First of all, you put on your boots. You know what that's like. Like literally,
yeah.
my boots have dirt in the treads from the last hike. So there's almost kind of like this religious moment when I put them on. I'm like, okay, I'm stringing together these walks outside throughout the days and months and weeks, and then you go out there and that feeling of your leg muscles burning as you start climbing that first hill, and and like little sweat starts prickling around my hairline and my bandana, and I'm like, oh, this is what my
I'm out. I'm back.
This is what my body's meant to do. This is what my heart is meant to do. You could smell all those smells.
I get that too. Like if I put my day pack on or my backpack, or like even like when I'm driving to wherever I'm going or I'm anticipating the hike, it's just like, I got to get on the trail.
Gotcha. It's interesting. And it's so funny because it doesn't usually call me too terribly strongly when I'm off the trail, because I do a lot of things in my life and I can focus on those things. But like you said, like as you get a little closer, and for me, when I'm driving up in the mountains, I roll down the window of my car and that smell hits you, that green smell. And then it's been decades I've been hiking, but I get little goosebumps, and I'm like, well, I'm going on a hike, and I'm going to, and there's something about, I don't know. I was going to say it can't just be me, but it must be all of us. But I just feel like I belong in nature.
Yeah.
And if I could, I would sleep outside all the time. I would eat all my meals outside. So it's just very comfortable to me.
So let's okay. So I think we're covering everything I thought we would. I just didn't know how it was going to go down. So, you're in Franklin, you hurt your foot, you go home, you're in this wheelchair, you're in a boot, you're all this stuff. So disappointment, I'm sure it's in your mind like, oh my God, I'm not going to finish this. But at some point, you do get back out to the trail and you make it to, if I remember correctly, McAfee Knob. Is that correct?
Nope, I actually went a lot further there.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
No, because I'm really my journey was kind of an interesting one, and it's very meaningful to me. My mom dropped me off right at the very bottom of Virginia. And then through the next months.
So you didn't go back to Franklin?
I did not go back to Franklin. So I'm literally the only Appalachian Trail diehard lover that I know that I've never done any of the Smokies. So I've skipped that part.
Gotcha.
So I got back on, did almost all of Virginia, and then we did in West Virginia. Well, that little section. Then we just skipped. We jumped up, and my hiking partner and I, at a certain point, and for me, it was pretty early on, I understood that my speed and my fitness level and my 260-pound, 5 feet tall self was not capable of moving fast enough to reach Katahdin by, September, October. So that I made peace with fairly quickly, because I didn't have a choice. You could make peace with that, or you could just live in a state of disappointment, I guess. But I did want to experience, I wanted to experience parts of Maine and New Hampshire and all of that, and the Whites. So we jumped up and we did sections of that. In all, it was 700 miles. And, to this day, every day, it literally happened yesterday on a hike. I always say, when people say, have you hiked the Appalachian Trail? And I say, no, just 700 miles. And what do you call them? Laymen, people who aren't AT people always go, oh, just 700. Oh, and they always kind of accuse me of downplaying and of being.
It's like you're sandbagging, like, oh,
and of insulting myself and my experience. I am not doing any of that. But you and I, we travel in circles with a lot of people that have done thousands and thousands of miles. So for me, this is just a very, it's like saying I have blue eyes, I have blonde, gray hair, and I did 700 miles. It's not that, it's just a thing.
No, I think it's a lot, because this podcast, section hike, it's about section hikers. And a lot of times people see us on the trail and, say, hey, are you out? What are you doing? You threw, oh no, I'm just a section hiker. Well, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of section hikers on this podcast that have hiked hundreds of thousands of miles. and have been very successful with families and jobs, careers. I mean, we had a weatherman who worked for the National Weather Channel, and he's a Triple Crown. We've had a female on here who's a Triple Crowner, and she never quit her job. She was a pastor. So Anna, you're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to say we're just section hikers, and you're not allowed to say you only did 700 miles. Okay.
So it must be that trigger word, just. But
yeah.
How interesting is it that your example is so much like myself? How interesting is it that so many of us carry our insecurities as part of our experience?
Isn't that that's crazy. We all do it, in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
So take us to where, okay, you're done. It's 2003. You're done. You've completed
what I'm going to do.
What Anna set out to do. And are you okay with that? Do you ever have, this goes into not completing or, dealing with depression. Are you okay with what you've done, or do you still have that, I want to do that?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. And it's so interesting because I've really studied this and the people around me. I think people fall somewhere on a spectrum of how important accomplishing a goal is to them. I have friends that if they set a goal, they can they will drag themselves over razor blades, bleeding, screaming, but they, by God, are going to finish that goal, regardless of whether it's good for them, whether the goal has changed, whether it's the goal. And I have other friends that never set any kind of goal. They just go through life taking every moment as it happens, which I think is really kind of great. I am a journey girl. And I did not know this until I did my AT attempt. The daily experience, the way my goals changed and my dreams changed during that year, it was really amazing. And it kind of took me by surprise because I remember being in Maine. I was in the 100-mile wilderness, and I had gone like 35 miles in, and it became clear I did not have enough food to keep going. I was going to have to bail. And to make a long story short, I ended up at a certain point spending 24 hours in my tent, and it was torrential raining the entire time. And my hiking partner had gone on. So there I am by myself, and I'm just like alternating sobbing. Sometimes I'm just laying there just depressed. Sometimes I'm just like, and I'm like, what is all this about? I mean, I knew I wasn't going to do the entire thing at that point. And the next day when I got up and the sun was shining and I took off, and I was walking down the trail a little bit later, and this voice literally spoke in my head, and it went, "This is just the beginning." It was just those words that said exactly that. And I remember I just stopped and I just got goosebumps all over my body. And I was like, it occurred to me it was a small part of my whole life, of like this large picture and of this large journey and where I'm going. And I'm like, oh, this is just the beginning. And it changed everything for me. Then it lifted up any kind of disappointment in myself that I had, and frankly, I wasn't all that disappointed for myself. It was more about being embarrassed to face an entire community that had supported me and believed in me. And, oh no, all that just went straight out the window. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do stuff with this. And I still wasn't sure. Trail names hadn't been born in my head quite at that point, but I just knew that the AT attempt had changed me, changed my life, and made me know that I could do lots of things.
That right there, I mean, that is phenomenal, because I'll tell you another reason, and I had to pause there because I was like, what am I going to say? Am I going to tell the truth, or what am I going to say here? So another one of the reasons that I contacted you and wanted to have you on the show is because when you when you interviewed me and I was on your podcast, we talked about my eternal love of the Appalachian Trail. And if anyone was ever going to listen, if anyone listens to that now, they would just think, wow, she is nuts over the Appalachian. She's never going to hike another trail. And just this past year, I have had a major transformation about hiking the Appalachian Trail. And right before I sent you a text, I had made it up in my mind that I don't care about a second completion right now. Mm-hmm. So I've completed it once, and I was working on completing it again. And I don't want this stigma that I'm only an Appalachian Trail hiker, or, I've done a lot of other trails, but people only seem to be, a lot of times focused on what I've done on the Appalachian Trail. And I have a lot of things in my mind that I want to do as far as a hiker, but I also have a lot of things in my mind that I want to do as giving back and being part of a community and being involved and, creating spaces and things for people, just like you were saying, like it's okay, to have disappointment. It's okay, you stayed in your tent for 24 hours and it came to you like great things are going to come of this. And I was maybe like a week or two before I texted you, it was going in my mind. I was like, am I hiking the trail so I can say I've hiked the trail twice? Or am I actually hiking the Appalachian Trail because I want to?
Right.
And really, it became the first one.
Yeah.
I feel, that'd be really cool if I could say I've done this twice and nobody cares.
Well, but here's the thing. If you cared, that would be the number one reason to do that. And to me, it's so interesting because, like, you're a great example. The first time you did it, that was your passion. That's what you cared about. But for most of us, our passions evolve and they change. Right. And I've listened to you. It's been so great. I've listened to you with your Mountains to Sea trail. And it was almost like you discovered another love. And our heart,
yes, and I have,
our hearts are big enough to love more than one trail and more than one experience. And it's just so interesting because when we get involved in our little niche for a while there, we forget, and so then when that growth kind of comes out of nowhere and takes us by surprise, I can think of many times that the universe has just kind of smacked me up against the head and went, no, you need to go this direction. You need to look at this. You need to explore.
I know. And when it happens to you, you can't believe it. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost hard to think that you thought another way. So let's get into the birth of the Trail Dames because, phenomenal. And did that come from, that stigma that you had in your mind that nobody looks like me out here? Where did the Trail Dames come from?
I think so. It's interesting because when I think back, because the Trail Dames is now 14 years old, and
wow,
yeah, I know, seriously, and can I just say, I'm just so proud. I call it the Trail Dames universe because we don't have one nonprofit designation. We have two because we have a charitable foundation. We have a conference we put on every other year, usually when there's not a pandemic. We have a podcast, and so like it's just grown in all these different directions, and I'm so proud of it. I can't even tell you. And we have like 21 chapters across the country, which I'm super proud of. But when I very first thought of the idea, to be honest with you, I wanted a couple of things. I wanted no woman to feel like me when I started to hike. That was like probably my number one. And when I go back and look at my writing, I have it written on one of my lists. It says, I just didn't want women to have the same feeling that I did, that I didn't belong. So what are we going to do? We're going to create a place for women to belong. And I was just going from my own experience, and I thought, if you're out of shape, if you're overweight, it didn't even matter if you were overweight, but if you hadn't done physical things in your life, would you feel confident jumping out there and doing it by yourself? And for 99% of us, the answer is no. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to teach them. I'm going to help them feel confident and show them the beauty of the trail. And it was very interesting that in the beginning, it was all about me providing a place and a service for other women to have their lives enriched. Well,
So what did you do though? Did you say, hey, I'm going to have a group hike? Like, how did you get started?
It's so interesting. Like I was up late one night and I was just screwing around on the internet, like not doing anything. And I don't know anything about computers. Well, I do now, but I didn't then. And literally I stumbled on this it was a Yahoo make your own website little thing. It was so cute. I'm like, ooh, I like that peach color. And ooh, I'm going to put my picture right here. And I swear to you, like at 3 a.m., the universe created a little 3-page website called Trail Dames. And the name came to me and everything. And so the next day I sent it to my best friend, Dana. And I said, what do you think of this? And she said, oh my God, Anna, this woman sounds just like you. And I was like, that is me. I made that. and I planned one meeting. We had a basement of our violin shop, and I kind of put out a call in the community. And my goal was to have 3 strangers, because you can always get your friends to come. But it's like selling Amway, or, you want strangers, you want to grow this. And I had 9 strangers come, and I'm like, ooh. And we planned our first hike, and we hiked Springer Mountain. And if you've ever hiked Springer Mountain, and if you've ever lived in Georgia, you know that this is not a normal hike. First of all, it takes forever to get there. You got the Forest Service Road. It's long, it's dusty, it's bumpy. And then when you get there, it's 9/10 of a mile up and then back down. So who in their right mind wants to do like a 5-hour round trip, car drive to hike less than 2 miles? But I wanted to have women experience just this beauty of being outside, and the dreams and the passion that I had experienced. And what better place? Springer Mountain, I always say, it has been immersed in the dreams of literally millions of people. When you say 90% of the people that stand on that mountain, they're trying to through hike, and the energy is it's just all dream. And I thought, this is where we're starting, And so we did. And I was like, okay, maybe some of those women from the first meeting will show up. 20 women came to my first hike.
Wow.
And my mom came, and we all, parked down there in the little parking lot. And the women took off. I pointed them. I said, I'm going to bring up the rear, because that was always my thing, is I will be last, because I don't want any woman to feel that feeling when you're last. And it was April 1st-ish, but there was still no greenery really. And we crossed the road, and they started up that trail. And my mom waited with me, and they all passed me. And you looked up, and you could see the colors of their clothes between the trees, and you could hear all this laughter raining down. And my mom and I looked at each other, and we both got just overcome and verklempt. And my mom goes, Anna, this is going to be big. And I was like, oh my God, how beautiful is this? And that's exactly how the whole thing started. Now, if you had told me how exhausted I'd be in 14 years, I might have gone a little slower, but probably not.
But it is big, and you've changed a lot of lives. And I think you said there's 21 chapters. How many members in the organization?
I couldn't even begin to tell you. I should know that, but I do not know that.
I think last time you and I talked, you said 8,000. Do you think it's more?
So if you're gonna count, it's probably 10 to 12 now. If you're just counting the people across that have signed up, but a lot of them aren't coming on hikes. We don't have that many hike leaders, So, but I have to just say, so you just said the words, you've changed a lot of lives. But here's what happened. In the beginning, that was my goal. I am going to help them, but
right.
Very, very quickly, it really evolved into a group in which it's really about connections, and we're all changing each other's lives. And, all of a sudden, my best friends in the world were all from Trail Dames, and they were all making friends. And the thing we hear on every hike is, I moved here and I didn't have any friends, and I came to Trail Dames, and now I have friends. And I joke. Sometimes I say we're an eating club with a hiking problem, because we always go out to eat after hike. And then,
well, come on now, that is like.
But I also say that we are a connections club with a hiking problem, because it really did very quickly just become about something way bigger than me helping another woman. We all helped each other, and we've all grown together. So
that is, I'm sitting here I don't even know what to say, because I'm just thinking of the progress in the process of getting that to happen. So it's like 2003, your mind speaks to you. You go on a hike to Springer Mountain. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, bravo, really, that dream, awesome. And, your mom's there, you're hearing the laughter. And, after listening to multiple episodes of your podcast, that is the Trail Dames podcast, the whole theme of the podcast is laughter. And, the women hiking and, it's fellowship.
It's fellowship
and connection.
Yeah. And it is also because I want to say you've said this word maybe 5 times before since we started today's discussion. And it's because it's the most important word. It has to do with our hiking. It has to do with trail names. And it has to do with your very initial statement about growing as hikers. And that is community. Community is everything. And that word can mean so many different things. Now, the Trail Names podcast, it is about community because, and all the different ways that we can support each other and meet each other. But the Section Hiking podcast, it's about community. And that's where actually all of our growth is happening too. And it's because our little worlds are becoming bigger. Our worlds became bigger when we decided to start hiking. My world became bigger when I went from being a hiker to a hike leader of sorts. Your world became bigger when you went from being a hiker to a podcaster, to an interviewer, and now you're sharing stories. And so for me, the fact that our communities are growing and our tribes are growing, this is where the magic happens for sure.
So where are you now in that growth? So, if we look over the, however long we've been talking, 30, 40 minutes, sorry, Steve.
He's lucky if we don't go 3 hours. I'm just saying.
He's lucky. Yeah. You've gone from, you're going to through hike the trail, you're going to complete certain parts of the trail. We've talked about it all: injury, disappointment, not completing a goal, but then this phenomenal completion of creating the trail names and hiking and 14 years later, and you have a summit. So you've got the trail names, you've got 21 chapters, you have a summit, and you didn't have it last year. And I think you're not having it this year because of COVID. But in that growth, where are you now? Are you growing? Yeah. Okay. So, and you have a board as well, right?
Yeah. Well, we have 2 different. So we have a board for the foundation and we have a board for trail names. So the one word you said that doesn't really fit into this scenario is completion. So what I would have, when I was younger, and by younger, I just mean I'm 53, but by younger, I mean when I was 43, I would have believed there was such thing as completing goals. And no longer, life is just not like that. I mean, it was like I was saying earlier, you will be able to look back over your life and see these things string together, and one thing leads to another, to another, to another. And so now, as far as trail names itself, oh my gosh, there's still so much we can do. Our thing from the very beginning, as I said, we're going to take over the trails of this world. We don't have any international chapters yet. So that's my next goal. I have several goals. Honestly, this is going to sound really strange, but one of the things that I love is when I go on a hike, because I went, like, for the last year, I didn't go hardly on any hikes. I have elderly parents and so, and even before that, but the rest of my life got so crazy. There was a lot of hikes I didn't go on. And if I went on a hike and no one knew who I was, it made me so happy, because I want trail days to be way bigger than me. I want it to be, I love it when I meet people and they go, "So how long have you been hiking with the Dames?" And I'm like, "Long time."
Long time.
Really long time. And it just, so I want trail names to be, I want the organization to be the center point of it, which it is, of course, at this point. And I want it to keep growing. I've wanted it for 10 years to be where I tell people, if an asteroid falls on me tonight, I want trail names to not even hesitate. I just want it to keep going. So, because, when you build anything, there's those first few years that it all hinges on you. And if something were to happen.
And now it's more, I see it. This is your legacy.
I hope so. It is my, I once heard Oprah say that she didn't have any children, that her show was her child. And I immediately said, yeah, Trail Names is my child. And if this is my legacy, that's amazing. I have other things I do too, though. I have another nonprofit that I do that has nothing to do with trails and hiking. So I have other aspects of my life, and all of them, they're just always growing. And it's like my life is like a lava lamp. Nothing stays still. I actually have one in my living room.
So what are since this is a hiking, focused network that we're on, and with both of our podcasts, what are your future hiking goals beyond the trail names? What are Anna's goals? Who are you now as a hiker? I guess I'm asking.
That is a really good question. I'm not sure I know how to answer that. So if I say to you, I have no hiking goals as of right now, I think for some people that might be a little surprising and maybe even a little disappointing. And my goals have shifted. Hiking right now is nothing but a relaxation thing that I do for fun. So when I think of a goal, there's always like a stress component. There's you have to do this component. I don't have any stress components to hiking in my life right now. Now I say right now, because that could always change. There are lots of trails I would love to do. But right now I'm not feeling the need to like set at 8 and go and do it, So it's just nothing but pure experience for me right now. And that's working out great. Totally great.
So any visions beyond the trail names?
Well, I mean, in terms of the outdoors and hiking, it's really interesting. Don't tell Steve, our producer, but when
he's not going to listen to this, Anna. Okay, he's just
when he first approached me. First, I was a guest on a show, just like you, and then he approached us to start podcast. I was really, is trepidatious the right word? Not because I didn't want to do it, because I knew I would love the process, but because of the time commitment and would I let him down and all that kind of stuff. And I still worry about those things. But I have to tell you, the podcast has just become so fulfilling to me. And because you know how it is, you get to connect with this guest, this person who every single podcast, they start off, I don't know them, and we end as a friend. That's just always a given. And on my podcast, we've really branched out to, yes, we talk, it's the outdoors often, but it's often like I interviewed a woman who's teaching Afghan women how to climb mountains, like the big mountains, I interviewed a woman who raises money for children's cancer units by going out and hiking big hikes. And so you start seeing these other aspects of what you can do with the outdoors and with your life and what kind of passions that can give birth to. And so, like, if you said, here's $20 million, Anna, you can do anything in this life you want, I'd want to do more podcasting, I think. Don't tell Steve. But it fills my heart in a way that I don't think I would have known was coming.
It's different. It's totally different than what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the word trepidate. What'd you say? Trepidatious?
Trepidatious. Like you're a little unsure, a little scared.
Trepidatious. Yes, trepidatious. So that's a great word. So I was a little trepidatious myself. And what you just said, like, we'll go back to the word growth and different way of doing things. And where I was in this world of section hiking, I'm moving, and it's rapid and it's okay.
You're a lava lamp.
I'm moving toward a lava lamp status, at first I was like, no, I'm a long distance hiker. I'm pounding miles. I'm doing this and this. And I find myself wanting to be just more involved and just giving back and sharing. And it's a different kind of growth. I'm still hiking, of course, yes. But it's just my mindset. It's unbelievable, actually, how much it's changed since your podcast, really.
Well, it's interesting because that's the thing at the very beginning of this conversation. When you said that, I could really see that. And I see it in you and your experience. And I think so many of both of our listeners have these experiences where you didn't see and I love the word growth, but evolution may even be a better word.
I like that. Yeah. Because you can see the movement within evolution.
Yeah, you really can. But you didn't necessarily see it coming. It's like a fast car that came up behind you on the interstate, and passes you and grabs you. And for sometimes, and I kind of hear this a little bit in you, for some people, they're unsure. They're like, wait a minute, does that mean I'm cheating on my initial passion? Now at this point in my life.
And you say that, and remember, I said sometimes I felt like I was cheating on the Appalachian Trail when I was on other trails. See?
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people feel that way, like they're cheating on their initial goal or whatever it is. I just see it is growth, evolution, change, but it's always moving forward and it's always taking us somewhere. I think when we have to worry is when we go home, sit down on the couch and just don't get up again. That's not a good thing, but,
right.
But I have to tell you, and I'm not trying to turn the tables on you and interview you, but I am really excited to hear about you're like you're saying now it's not just the hiking aspect. It is the support aspect and the telling the stories and the creation. That's that community business. As your community starts getting a little bigger. See, you have been interviewing and talking to people involved in the Mountain to Sea Trail, not just the hikers, but the
right.
And that's been really cool to hear.
Yeah. And I want to do more of that. And you have not heard this episode because you and I are recording. But Corey and I kind of ended the episode. I put a call to action out. Like, I want to talk to more people who've had these evolutions like you and I have.
Oh, yeah.
And they're section hikers and, they've pounded these trails and now they want to, and I don't know if we can thank COVID for this part of it, like being forced to, seek trails in our local communities, in our state, and really being open to what's before us. Whereas before it was, oh, well, if you don't hike these 3 trails, you're not going to be qualified as a hiker. Forget it. Don't put it on your resume. And now it's like, no.
Right.
No, like that's not the way it is at all. Mm-hmm. That's not the way it is at all.
Sometimes I kind of think of the trails as the lunchroom in a high school.
Oh God.
Yeah, not in a bad way, not in the populars and the geeks, not like
you
that.
You forgot I teach high school, right?
That's right. That's right. But I mean, all right, look out over this lunchroom and this group over here, those are the AT people. And you can always tell the AT people because they're really social. And then these people over here, they're the PCT people. And you can tell who they are because they're just a little rougher around the edges and they can go out for a week and not see anybody and they're okay. And then you see the CD people and those are the real, they could
those are the beasts.
Those are the beasts, exactly. Yeah. And you see all these different people. Well, I don't know about you. My world started with that one table in the lunchroom. And then I started like walking to other tables and introducing myself. And like, the trail maintainers table, they're a very fun group. The people, like you mentioned, the people that are on the boards of these organizations that keep our trails beautiful, clean, safe, that let us know about them. They get the marketing out. That was a very
people
fun
that
table
raise
to
money.
visit.
Fundraisers. Oh my God, they're phenomenal.
So you see how this community, it's all a giant thing, but you see how you start visiting other tables in our lunchroom and it starts making you want to do more things with these cool people over here. And I want to do this over here. It's a pretty neat thing.
That's a really, you know what? I didn't know where you were going with the high school lunchroom, but that...
I could have called it a food court in a mall.
You could have, but a high school lunchroom. Everybody's like, I mean, you could visualize that, back at your own high school and everybody, sitting at the different tables. Yeah. And like you, I didn't visit every table, but I wanted to know what was going on at the table. Yeah.
Beautifully said. That's exactly what it is. I always wanted to know. And just dip your toe in these different communities. You learn so much and you find that we all kind of bleed together and, not literally, but figuratively, because we all share the same love of whatever experience it is,
Well, it'll be interesting because I still want to do, here for my 2nd anniversary of the podcast, have you and Steve back on.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Because the 3 of us have definitely had a lot of growth. And, there's a few more months before December. And I think even before then, some things will sound different than now.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think I'll end this episode. I didn't ask you if you had a reading or anything. I think I'll ask you, what's your call to action? What do you want to leave the listeners with as far as, and I might just start doing this. Like, what is your call to action and what do you encourage listeners to do or give them something to think about?
Oh God, I have 42 calls to action, but I'm here. This is going to be the simplest one, and I love it from our conversation. My call to action to everyone listening is turn away from your lunch table and talk to the people in the one next to it. And if you have trouble extrapolating what I mean by that, because some people are very literal, send me an email at info@trailnames and I'll explain it to you. But if you are a hiker, go to a Sierra Club's meeting that's about the environment. If you're a board member, go out and hike on the trail that you're protecting. Just turn around and meet some people at the table next to yours.
Thank you, Anna. And send us both emails because literally we want to know your growth as a hiker and we want to know your call to action and we want to start talking about it. So, all right, Anna, thank you very much. You and I are going to chat again real soon.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much for letting me come on.
Well, I may have reached out to Anna to be on the show for one set of topics, but as you guys heard, it was great to hear Anna's growth and evolution as a hiker. As we all take a look at ourselves and where we want to grow as a hiker, whether that's getting involved with a hiking community, organization, or even in Anna's case, starting your own organization, we can all start in the lunchroom and see what table we want to go to next. You can find all of today's information and pictures in the show notes by going over to hikingradionetwork.com and clicking on the Jester Section Hiker Show. And please check out the Trail Dames podcast hosted by Anna while you're there. If you like what we do here at the network, please consider a donation to your favorite show or leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week, and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.